All right, we are rolling. So welcome everyone to one of Brain Northwest's educational programs. We have our lovely teacher Caterina here today, who comes from a rich history of teaching and educating to a variety of populations, and also has lived experience as her husband is a brain injury survivor. So she's coming to us with a variety of professional and personal background to guide us through this lovely presentation. And I will hand it over to you, Caterina.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Reggie. It's so nice to be here with you all. Let me go ahead and pull up our slide deck. And I just like to caveat too, I don't know what it is about my monitor, but for some reason when I do share my screen, I am unable to see your lovely faces. So if you're raising your hand, like Reggie had said, feel free to drop it in the chat. Just know that it's nothing that I can see for some reason. I unfortunately am not that tech savvy.
The
All
same
right.
thing happens to me every
Oh,
time. So yep, you're not alone. So I'll keep an eye out.
thank you. Well, today we're here to kind of learn about your different community and different ways of reframing your community. So, as we kick off, I want you to imagine this. You're standing outside at night, you're looking up at the sky. Some stars are bright, steady, and close, others are faint, a little bit tucked away in the distance. But when you connect them, they form something recognizable and guiding. Your brain works in a similar way. So it's made of billions of neurons, each a point of light. But the power doesn't come from the individual neurons, it comes from the way they connect. So today, we're not really going to be focusing on what's missing. We're going to really focus on how to chart these constellations in our own life and even expand them in ways that fit who you are now. So my goal is by the
Caterina,
time
just a quick question. We can't see your slides.
you can't see my slides.
But we can see you, which is lovely, but I'm
Oh,
sorry to interrupt
gracious.
you.
There, okay.
I just
Could you see my screen at all?
We can see you. We just aren't seeing any of your computer screen. Or you're there. Now we're getting closer. Just a second. Yep, there we go. All
There
right.
we go.
So sorry to interrupt you. You have this beautiful visual,
No,
and so I wanted it to go. So now we can see it. That's lovely. Yes.
oh, I don't know what I did there, but now for some reason I can see you guys. So it all works out. All checks out. Okay. So I'm not sure where I left off there. My train track has left, but today what we're really focusing on is, how to map your community and just really understanding that you're not alone. You're connected and you have more strength than you think. Okay, so today we're going to be covering why connection isn't just emotional, it's biological. Your brain literally needs it to heal. Second, we're going to map your current network, not just family and friends, but really evaluating all of the different ties that support you in ways that, you may not really think about. And the next, we're going to find your hidden strengths. So those connections, kind of using them as building templates for more. And then we're going to review how to reframe the stories that you tell yourself about isolation so they don't turn into self-fulfilling kind of like a template of, okay, this is me, this is my life, this is how I'm going to live. And then finally, we're going to walk through strategies to grow those connections both in person and online in ways that honor your energy, but also your space, your pace. All right. So, it's really not uncommon to think, I want my old life back. And I'm sure that maybe that's something that you might say to yourself regularly or really kind of ruminate about. But social recovery doesn't work like rewinding a movie. Your brain has changed, which means your starting point has changed. And after a brain injury, your cognitive architecture is different. Your processing speed, attention, sensory filtering, emotional regulation, they all work differently now. So when you try to force your changed brain into unchanged social patterns, you kind of create this psychological stress that happens when your expectations aren't really matching reality. So, trying to force yourself back into the exact same patterns that you had maybe before your injury creates so much frustration. So, you may find that once you really start forcing or you stop forcing your old patterns, you discover new forms of connection that might be deeper or more intentional and more satisfying. So here's a high-level overview of, some of the benefits of connection after TBI, and I can go on and on about the benefits of connection after TBI, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet for you all here today. So stress is one of the biggest blocks to neuroplasticity, which is, your brain's ability to rewire and form new pathways. If the cortisol stays high in your body, the brain has a harder time learning, healing, and adapting. But when you have someone in your corner, like a friend, a family, or a loved one, that connection kind of acts like a buffer. So making your brain more biologically ready to recover. So here's what connection heals. It creates those positive interactions. It releases oxytocin and dampens cortisol. Studies show that social support changes the amygdala response, how it responds to stress. And the amygdala is kind of like your stress reactor. And also memory. It does a lot of good things, but primarily in this sense, I'd like you to envision it kind of as your stressor. So in other words, your connection turns down the volume on fear. Neuroplasticity. So every conversation that you have is a full brain workout. And I'm sure sometimes it feels like a full brain workout. You're processing language, holding details and working memory, shifting attention, reading emotions, just really making sense of what someone else is thinking all at once. So there's a saying, it's neurons that fire together, wire together, meaning that those repeated interactions strengthen the networks across the whole brain. And it also reduces inflammation. So, it'll lower your stress hormones, inflammatory markers, and isolation is now classified as a risk factor for mortality on par with smoking, which is pretty unbelievable. So that's a fun fact out there for you guys. And then lastly, identity reconstruction. We understand ourselves through others, and sometimes that can be for the best, and others maybe not so much, but we tend to take on others' perception and perspective of ourselves. So the medial prefrontal cortex, which is your self-concept center, lights up the most during social processing. So, just another added factor to take into why we should socialize. Socialize. So this diagram represents the multi-system impact of brain injury on social cognition. Notice, of course, I'm sure you hear all the time, brain injury is not linear, and it's certainly not linear in this diagram. It's a complex interplay of cognitive, sensory, emotional, and physiological changes. The average conversation takes about 150 to 200 words per minute. So think about that processing while simultaneously trying to manage nonverbal cues, contextual information, turn-taking protocols, and of course, emotional subtext. After brain injury, when processing speed is reduced, the cognitive load can just become overwhelming. So brain injury often affects the reticular activating system, which is your neurological filtering mechanism. And this means environmental stimuli that healthy brain automatically filters out become intrusive and they demand attention. And in social environments, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, it kind of creates this cocktail party syndrome, which is this inability to focus on one conversation amid background noise. And it's almost like a tsunami kind of coming at your brain all at once, just trying to take in that social stimuli, which creates that social fatigue and cognitive exhaustion. And understanding this, just kind of, I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys about your symptoms, but I'm just really acknowledging and validating your experience. And understanding this helps explain why social avoidance may often occur. It's not depression, or it very well could be depression, but in some cases, it's not depression or antisocial behavior. It's kind of like an adaptive response to the cognitive overload. So here we're going to map your constellation of support. And you can absolutely take out a piece of paper or a pen, or you can do this in your own time, or maybe just sit with yourself and really think about, your guiding stars as we talk about this. And then maybe, on your own time, try to map out your own network. So mapping your constellation of support is not a list. It's not a wedding guest list where we just kind of create all of our family members and really try to think about our network in that way. You want to think about yourself at the center of the night sky, and then the stars around you are not random. They're going to form patterns, and those patterns are going to help guide you. So while some stars have probably absolutely shifted, relationships may have changed. You may have lost someone may have passed away that you love dearly. Maybe relationships look differently in that regard. But change doesn't mean absence, and it doesn't mean that you can't chart your sky or even develop new relationships. So your bright stars are going to be your core anchors or your close ties. So these are the people who get you. Maybe they knew you before and have grown with you, or maybe they met you afterward and value exactly who you are today. They don't see you as fragile, they see you as a whole person. They're the ones who give you space when you need it and strength when you ask for it. They're uplifting and empowering and all of the things that we hope our close ties should be. So when you really think about your bright star, you want to ask yourself, who in your life reflects your pace, who respects your pace, who values your input, and treats you as capable? Those are going to be your bright stars. Then there are the steady constellations. So the people that you cross paths with who create rhythm and familiarity. Kind of like small interactions, but also not small interactions. So research shows that these consistent points of recognition, like a neighbor who waves, it's something that you can anticipate. For instance, I have a neighbor who walks her dog every morning. Every morning, she doesn't miss a beat. It's the same time. I happen to be walking out my door at the same time, and we exchange that wave. And it's that familiarity. I know she's going to be there. She knows I'm going to be there. So just kind of these small interactions really help you to get through your day. So this is something that you can also consider as a steady part of your constellation. While they may not be a big tie, they're still a part of your daily interactions with individuals. Also, your professional galaxy. You can think about these as doctors, therapists, coaches, case managers, all of the individuals in your life who support you that are more than titles. They're partners in your growth, and they help track your wins, your strategies, and they respect and also help create your goals. So they're not just helping professionals, they're collaborators in building your next chapter. So now we're going to really view this through a strength-based optimization. Instead of focusing on what's missing, we're going to try to identify relationship patterns that work exceptionally well and reverse engineering their success. So these are three different categories. Your reliability stars, which are the people who maintain your supportive engagement. Even one reliable support relationship reduces depression risk and improves rehabilitation outcomes. Your trust galaxies are relationships that provide empathy, authenticity, unconditional acceptance. You can kind of think about them as emotional attunement. So recognizing and responding appropriately to your emotional state. Research shows interactions with emotionally attuned people activate your nervous system's healing state. So these are relationships that you certainly want to pay attention to and nurture. Your mutual benefit nebula. This addresses the most psychologically damaging assumption in traditional rehabilitation, and that's that brain injury automatically puts you in the permanent state of receiving. And research shows that reciprocal relationships are associated with higher levels of self-esteem and better mental health than one-way support because it's also giving you that agency, and it's kind of flipping the script of, okay, that's great. I'm so used to receiving the help and the support and, the attention is focused on me, but also what can I do for you? How can I fill your cup? how can we make this a mutual relationship? So reciprocity often takes non-traditional forms. You might consider, listening skills, being an active listener, giving your own life perspective, holding patience, holding space, having gratitude, or even a specialized knowledge from your recovery experience. These strength clusters become your template for network expansion. And then when you understand what makes your best relationship successful, you can seek those qualities and new connections. So here's your hidden network. And I kind of just touched on this a little bit in regards to, the people around you that you see on a regular basis that we don't really think of as, people who are in our corner. And it's sometimes a lot of people that we do overlook. So this is the hidden part of your network. And these aren't always obvious best friends or family members, but they matter more than we give them credit for. These connections often carry us through our toughest days. So think about walking outside, like I mentioned, and someone just smiling at you or, saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" But you can tell that they're actually meaning, "How are you doing?" rather than that autopilot, "Hey, how are you?" Just really just checking in on you. So I want you to think about professionals in your life. It could be, again, therapist, doctor, case manager, counselor. On paper, they're services, but many of them become anchors, and it's really easy to write them off as, oh, they're just my medical support. I'm just another face to them. I'm just kind of in and out. But, they notice when something's off. It's not just a description to them. And most people who do go into, the helping process, they're there for a reason and they want to be there. So, I mean, really utilize those networks. And if you're needing additional support or if you're needing to use someone as a sounding board, that is certainly a safe space to do so. I'm not saying make them your best friend or invite them over for dinner, but certainly, I mean, these connections are valuable. So please do not look over them. Then there's the people who just get it. And I would imagine that you are sitting in a space of people who just get it, from your attendees to the people who end up viewing this video later on YouTube, other survivors. So people who don't need you to explain the fatigue or the word finding blocks or the invisible struggles. You say, "I lost my train of thought mid-sentence," and instead of pity, they might laugh and say, "Yesterday, I called my daughter by my dog's name." They're not looking for sympathy, it's solidarity, and in that moment, you're not alone. So these micro connections add up, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself by saying micro connections, and we'll go a little bit into that the next slide, but there are people that you think about that are part of your network. So, like the barista who smiles when you walk in, or the grocery clerk who packs your bags carefully or remembers that you like to bring your bag because maybe you're in the Pacific Northwest and not in South Carolina like myself, where you've moved on from plastic, but that's not the case here. So, remembering your preferences. And these everyday points of recognition are linked to lower loneliness and better well-being. And they can help remind you that you're not alone, and, not just in your family or your circle, but in your community at large. So the magic of micro connections. What if I told you that some of the most powerful connections you can build do not come from hour-long conversations or lifelong friendships, but from moments that last less than 2 minutes? I call these micro connections. Again, think about the delivery driver who doesn't ring the doorbell because he knows if he rings that doorbell, your dog's going to lose his mind and you get overstimulated when the dog starts barking. So maybe he'll lightly tap or leave your package behind. Or again, the neighbor who waves as part of your morning routine. Studies on social health show that even brief positive interactions reduce the stress, reduce, the cortisol in your body, and boost feelings of belonging. So in other words, your brain doesn't care how long the connection lasts. It still registers it as meaningful. Every micro connection activates the same brain systems as, larger, more demanding social interactions. So you're still using your language, your attention, your emotion recognition, but they do it without overwhelming your cognitive energy. So that quick, low stakes, repeatable, overtime interaction sparks literally rewire pathways for connection, just as repeated exercise strengthens a muscle. So maybe, a dinner party might feel impossible. A 2-minute chat with a neighbor might be just right. When the thought of a phone call feels like it might be draining, leaving a quick supportive comment in an online group can be just enough to make you still feel connected, still feel like you're contributing to the community without draining you. And micro connections create momentum without requiring more than you can give. You don't have to rebuild your entire social life overnight. You just need to start with small moments. One smile, one acknowledgement, one tiny exchange that says, I see you and you see me. So, reframing isolation narratives. I'm not sure if you guys are in therapy or counseling, but reframing is a topic of conversation regularly. So, really, your inner narrative is not just background noise, it shapes the pathways that your brain strengthens after injury. Your brain is a prediction machine, and it loves to make wild accusations and wild predictions regularly. When you repeat a thought enough, like, I'm too much work, or, ugh, my social life is over, I just might as well not even try, your brain will take that as a blueprint. And it really starts to filter your world for evidence that's confirming the story that you're telling yourself. And it's not, doing it just to like, oh, this is what you think, this is what it is. It's just how neural networks conserve energy. So you really have to be mindful and intentional about what you're telling yourself about your social life or your well-being or your mental health, or just your current state, from limiting to liberating. And that could look like, I have no friends, to I have space for new authentic connections, or people don't understand me, to maybe I have insights to share with the right people, which is often true. Once you find that person that you can really connect with, when you find a kindred and, everything just feels like a natural flow, maybe it's you just haven't found the right people to share those insights with. And my social life is over, to my social life is transforming into something new and maybe even deeper or better. It's really about choosing a language that makes space for possibility instead of shutting it down. Think of your social life like the seasons. Winter isn't the death of summer, it's the preparation for spring. Periods of quiet or isolation are seasons of rebuilding. And the great thing about that is you get to decide when winter becomes spring. You get to plant seeds of connection, even the small ones that bloom in their own time. And the way people reflect you back helps you rewrite your identity. So when you begin to tell yourself these new stories and living into them with micro connections and supportive ties, you're actively constructing an authentic version of yourself. So take one limiting story that you've been carrying, like just one limiting story. It could be, maybe I have nothing valuable to give in a conversation, which is something that I know I've told myself sometimes, like maybe I have nothing to add. Why even open my mouth if I'm not going to make an impact? But really asking yourself, how could I rewrite the sentence in a way that feels more open and more possible? And I certainly don't want this class to be a toxic positivity kind of spiel where I'm telling you to reframe and maybe think this instead of that, or, these are things that you can do to improve your social circle. But, if you're finding that when you're mapping your community and maybe your community feels smaller than you'd like, then you always have the option to grow your circle. Again, it's not about quantity, it's about the quality and finding the right connections that feel energizing and sustainable and aligned with who you are. You shouldn't walk away from interaction feeling drained from that person. Of course, we're all going to feel drained walking away from interactions after it's been quite a bit, but they should be fulfilling and energizing. So one of the best starting points is a shared interest. When you connect through something that you love, whether it's, gardening, music, photography, fishing, cooking, you don't have to perform or be on, which is great because the activity does the heavy lifting for you and it takes the pressure off of you. So you don't have to perform and you can just relax. And there's not a lot of pressure to kind of carry that cognitive load or come up with different conversations. And research on flow shows that when people are engaged in meaningful tasks together, bonding happens more naturally without the cognitive strain. And this is my favorite. So, nature is your ally. Studies on forest bathing and green spaces show that even light time outdoors lowers your stress hormones and improves your mood. So you can really think about, maybe different walking groups that you can do if mobility allows, or tending to a community garden. Bird watching in your backyard is beneficial to your brain and nervous system too. And these environments really allow you to be with people without pressure to contribute at your own pace. And for many survivors, the feeling of always being on the receiving end can quietly erode identity. So, really think about, okay, how can I give back? How can I have that reciprocity, like we were just talking about? How can I be that mutual nebula? And a really great way to do that is volunteering or being a mentor to someone else, whether that's as a brain injury survivor or being a mentor as an avid crocheter, whatever lights you up, whatever gives you a spark to where you feel like, I can really take the time to mentor another individual or give a different perspective in a peer group. And lastly, similar to what you're in now, a structured class, an art workshop, faith communities provide built-in frameworks where it kind of sets the expectations and it's clear. And the onus isn't really on you, it's on the facilitator to really walk you through kind of this framework of how to interact. And it takes the pressure off. So you have less energy spent on figuring it out and more energy available for connection. And online strategies. So I want you to think about technology not as a replacement for contact, but as a tool that widens the doorway. The key is to use it intentionally in ways that support your brain rather than overwhelm it. Sometimes a lot of screen time can just be exhaustive and not so great for your brain. I do advocate for green spaces. But when you can find a safe online space like Brain Northwest, other TBI Facebook groups, and again, it doesn't have to be TBI related. This was just an example here. Really, anything that lights you up or to where you feel like you can connect with like minded individuals or differing individuals for different perspectives if you want to learn something new. And I do advocate for, online platforms like YouTube learning channels where you can learn at your own pace. And at the same time, that helps to build confidence, gives you something new to talk about, gives you another little toolkit to have in your back pocket, and also another conversation starter. But you can use platforms like Coursera, Khan Academy, like I just mentioned, YouTube Learning Channel. Harvard, I put here, surprisingly, they have quite a few free online courses. So if you do your research, you can find a lot of really great programs that you can kind of just do. No pressure. There's no certification process or anything like that. Meetup.com is great. Eventbrite, you can see different events for your locality. Let's see, TikTok is pretty big. So if you're wanting to connect with, individuals, again, with whatever interest it is, that's a really great way to connect with people. And it's low pressure because, again, you can quietly lurk, you can quietly look at how to knit online and not have to participate. But also that still feels like you're still part of the community. So Again, the beauty of online connection is that it respects your pace. You can read a post 5 times before responding, and you can step away when you're fatigued. You can turn off notifications and come back when you have energy. So think about technology kind of as an extension of your constellation, the telescope that lets you see stars that may otherwise be hidden. Use it not to replace face to face moments, but to expand your options, to find new constellations, and to practice connection in ways that feel safe. So, when you're looking at this slide, what online doorway would you feel would serve you right now? And again, this is a question that you can either throw in the chat or you can kind of just sit with that self reflection. Are you interested in kind of the online brain injury community? Are you interested in maybe picking up a new skill? Um, are you just interested in maybe volunteering? So, really think about how you could expand, should you choose to expand your connections. And this slide kind of goes hand in hand to my previous class that I did on communicating for connection and how to optimize that. You can take a look at that online via Brain Northwest and their YouTube channel. But here are some tips and tricks. One of the best things that you can do before the conversation even starts, if you're feeling really stressed out, if you're ruminating about it, it's really great to keep a conversation starter list on your phone, a few topics ready to go, or if you feel like not being so scripted, that's fine too. You can just have a little something in your back pocket. Do a quick energy check and ask yourself, is this really the right time that I need to be having a conversation? Am I just completely depleted of life and of the day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? If not, put a pin in it and say, hey, maybe tomorrow morning. Just really kind of check in with yourself and never force yourself to again be on in those situations where you just don't have the energy. Advocate for yourself. Can we sit somewhere a little quieter? Do you mind if I turn down the TV? Hey, this is really overstimulating. Can you please turn the radio down so I can hear you while we're chatting? And, they're not special requests. They're kind of like accessibility accommodations, like wearing glasses to read. So never feel like you're putting anyone in any imposition to make those requests to feel more comfortable. And again, using active listening, asking for more permission for processing time, using redirection if you're feeling overwhelmed. You can use voice to text apps, which I will be reviewing in my next class too for tech tidbits. Calendar reminders can include social check ins, and then social scripts stored digitally, either on your phone or on your laptop if you're out getting tea or something like that. So you can really think about your last tough conversation. Like, what was the hardest for you when you're thinking about optimizing your communication? What was the most difficult for you in that moment? Was it you were feeling overwhelmed? Did you not know what to talk about? Did your brain just kind of blank out? Did you space out? What did that look like for you? And as we close, I just want you to remember this. Your brain is not built for isolation. It is built for connection. Every neuron, every pathway, it's designed to thrive in relationships. And when these connections are disrupted by brain injury, the pathway back is not through isolation, but through rebuilding your constellation of relationships. Helen Keller once said, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. And I love this quote because it is so very true. And sometimes it's so easy to be stuck in our own ways of, this is just how I am, and I'm just going to keep moving forward like this. But if it's not serving you, please know that these strategies are so very helpful and you have so much to give. You have people who see you, who value you, and who can walk with you. And there are new stars waiting to be discovered in neighbors, in communities, in shared laughter, and in micro moments of recognition. So thank you all so much for joining me with this class. And if you have any questions, I am happy to address, or if you have any comments or anything that that really arose for you during this class, I'm happy to listen.
I'm just going to stop recording and open it up for that. Thank you for that.